Let's now switch to the markets where MSOs broke out of its 690 resistance. Not a massive move, but nevertheless a move in the right direction. Do you think this move is coming because many retail investors think the DEA announcement is imminent?
That is a good question because we always get retweeted or anything like this. Whenever there's a big move, everybody always jumps the gun and says, "Oh, announcement's imminent," or a bunch of options are being purchased, so that must be it. Politicians are getting in. All these conspiracy theories come online, and while that may be the case, I can't prove my theory completely. I think it has more to do with just the market and just with MSOs following something like IWM, which is the Russell 2000 small cap index. And that is an index, like a weighted average market capitalization of each company is about 2.75 billion. The median market cap is approximately 950 million in that index. And that's what cannabis is right now. That's what most of the tier ones or tier twos are around that $1 billion range on the tier one side. A couple of them are a little bit higher, but I think it's just basically following that index in an environment where there's a lack of news flow. So in that,
rain on that parade, baby.
It defaults.
Rain on that parade.
Yeah. I don't mean to rain on the parade. I just mean to give
no.
Market information as I see it, and it's actually this is not even an original idea. A lot of this comes from Dan the Chartman, who I follow, who I listen to, and I think he's absolutely right. In the absence of news flow, these ETFs or some market segments can follow some indexes that are more appropriate to the companies of their market cap. And I think that's what's happening here. No, there wasn't any headlines today, big headlines, but IWM broke out. And I think that was enough to move MSOs over the line.
Anthony, do you see things in a different light?
No, actually. And I thoroughly enjoy Ben's perspective that he brings, because up until the call we had earlier today with our touch base, I wasn't thinking about the Russell 2000 breaking out and how those market internals can move MSOS and the underlying assets. So, I mean, Ben's approach makes complete sense. I don't think there's an announcement coming here. There is no HHS or DEA leaked document. Like, we caught a bid. I mean, we caught a bid on a day when small caps are rallying. It looks great. My screen's looking pretty healthy across the board. There's a lot of double-digit gainers. There's a lot of tier one cannabis names that are up between 5 and 9%. I will take that any day of the week, whether there's an announcement or not. Now let's see what happens tomorrow and see if we can continue this moving forward.
So what's the big takeaway here, gentlemen?
Don't get excited. Don't get excited. This is good to see, but it is probably just a function of just market internals and just things moving in lockstep with each other.
Benjamin A. Smith, do you agree?
I do. I would say sometimes the market moves on news flow and sometimes the market moves on technicals. Each day is different. Some days it will move on based on a different dynamic. I think today's dynamic is Russell 2000 breaking out because there wasn't any sort of news flow that really resonated. In fact, and we'll touch on it in a sec, Germany actually delayed their vote, and that's probably the biggest thing in the industry right now outside of HHS. They delayed their vote until next year. So we'll get into that in a sec.
Mohammed, you're absolutely correct. We are wearing pajamas and shorts, waist down, but I'm glad that you made that comment. That's for sure. All right, gentlemen, this is the Into the Wire section of the To Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Deals. Thanks for checking in as we bring you all the latest information and headlines in cannabis and psychedelics. So let's move on to headline number 3, the To Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network, and now move to the Big Apple. And who doesn't love a Big Apple, right, Ben? And the great state of New York, where brand guidelines are shaking up, Anthony. So let's break this down. What does this mean that we could hear later this week?
So in New York fashion, they're obviously making things a little more convoluted. They're trying to have vision over everything in the industry. As it is right now, if you're a brand and you want to enter the New York market, up until this week, you could simply do a white label processing agreement or a royalty agreement or licensing agreement with one of the current New York operators. Simple, clean. It's just you, your brand, your IP, making an agreement with one of the licensed operators, and you're good. Now, what New York is actually implementing is a 3-tier processing license process that's going to be implemented here, I'm pretty sure, after this week. So tier 1, you can process, manufacture, do whatever within the state, unencumbered. That's a full access license, we'll call it. Tier 2, you can, from my understanding, you can manufacture to a degree. Oh no, from a tier 2 license, the caveat is you can't extract. So you can create finished products. You can create finished products for any of these white labeling or licensees that want to come in, but you cannot extract down the product. So you actually have to buy your extracts and your concentrates in offtake agreements from various other market participants. Level 3, which they're calling the branding license, is the lowest tier. It's a simple license. From my understanding, it's $1,000 up front. It's a $2,000 fee once it's granted. 50% of that fee is discounted for social equity applicants. And then being granted that license, you now can operate within a branding partnership framework within the state of New York. So they want to do this for increased visibility as to who their market participants are. Obviously, check up on them and clip some fees in the meantime. To my knowledge today, actually, after reading the report, which it was an interview that was published by Deborah Borchardt in the Green Market Report, there are actually 200 brands right now in the New York market. There's probably going to be a lot more entering here shortly as we're seeing the retail ban lifted. You're going to start to see the wheels start to grease of the New York market, and more things are going to come online. So while on a headline, I was like, oh, great, they're just putting more regulation in. They're going to make it more complicated. It really isn't more complicated. They're kind of just streamlining their licensing as it relates to processing with the needs of the actual license holder. So it's not, go ahead.
Is it fair to say that New York indeed is making a step in the right direction of cleaning up the mess that they've created?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a step in the right direction or the wrong direction. It's just they're putting more licensing and more oversight into the industry, which doesn't surprise me, all things considered.
All right. So companies that are based in New York don't really stand to benefit from the announcement later this week. It's business.
No, if anything, and they've known for some time now, they're going to have to go through the licensing process and redo the agreements that they currently have with the operators in the state.
More paperwork for a minute.
Quick sidebar here, Anthony. In your opinion, is the New York market ever going to be like a liberalized adult use market, like something you would see in, Illinois, for example?
Yes, it will be. When? TBD. New York's got so much turmoil that Pablo didn't even include it in his adult use metrics. For companies' valuations.
I know
that should tell you something. They're going to make sure the attorneys get paid first. Bob is very correct in the comments.
Very good point, Bob.
They're going to make sure that probably the workers are unionized. They're going to make sure that everybody is getting everyone that puts their hand out that expects a piece is probably going to get a piece in the New York market. That being said, yeah, it's going to be one of the biggest markets in the world probably once they figure shit out.
We begin today with the crypto industry and Bitcoin as it's booming, Anthony, up over 43,000 now, steady climb for the asset when looking back over the past 12 months. This latest run, do you think this is shaping up to be a big year 2024 for Bitcoin?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
I love that answer. Yeah.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, they're all slowly trending up.
Yeah.
Bitcoin cracked 44,000. Right now it's sitting at 43.8. Ethereum finally cracked 2,200. Pretty sure it's still sitting at around 2,200 and change. The crypto momentum is starting to take shape, and you're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it in altcoins. You're seeing it in gaming assets. You're seeing it in NFTs to a degree. But I think that it's Bitcoin that is going to be the major beneficiary of this run, even on a multiple basis this time around. Like the buy pressure from the ETFs, if and when they get approved, that's going to be tremendous. I think this is some positioning for that right now ahead of the announcements. You've got the halving coming in April of 2024. It's just getting started as far as the price action goes. Now, I wanted this to be a positive segment on the show today when I was writing my show notes. And since then, Jamie Dimon has been circulating on a Senate panel that he was on today, saying that if he was in government, he would shut down Bitcoin and crypto effective immediately. Now, this is
buy button.
Yeah.
Buy
Not
button.
only is it a buy button that every time China has said, let's ban Bitcoin, Bitcoin's ripped. JP Morgan has a blockchain business. It's
Yeah.
called Onyx by JP Morgan. So JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon obviously believe in blockchain. They just want control over the entire sector, and they don't want you to be able to pick what blockchain you're on.
Yeah.
Or what or how you are performing commerce around the digital web. Like,
Now, sorry, just to add to that, Anthony, sorry to cut you off. About a couple weeks ago, JP Morgan analysts came out and said basically that there could be sell pressure based on
yeah,
grayscale and the ETF and all that. It could be a good time
yeah.
to sell. And they've been saying that the whole way up. And, when it was
Yeah.
at 25,000, sell
yeah.
now.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I respect differing opinions. I respect people that are a lot smarter than me and are a lot richer than me, which obviously he is. But just to say this is so blatantly ignorant and stupid that it was just egregious. Like, JP Morgan has been fined, I think $37 billion in the last 5 years from regulators. And the only reason why they've been incurring those fines is because they don't give a shit about the rules. They're making so much money that they can do this nefarious activity, break the rules, pay the fines, and net still be big in the positive.
I think the biggest thing for these
only
guys,
arguments for banning crypto was it's used by terrorists, drug dealers, and money laundering.
yeah,
Which, if you were to look at terrorists, drug dealers, and money launderers, the most popular medium for money laundering on the planet is the US dollar. It's not Bitcoin. Like, it was just completely disingenuous, almost like he's trying to create FUD. It's ridiculous.
the stuff that he could say 20, 30 years ago, you cannot get away with today. Absolutely not.
No.
People see right through it. And, time will tell. And he's already revealing his cards just by opening up his mouth a lot of the times. But yeah, interesting stuff to say the least. But those are some valid points. Mitch, can we get a China? Can we get a China? And give me some China sound effects right now, buddy.
China. China.
Where's the Donald Trump one that you posted the other day? Anyway, Ben, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was saying even that argument could have even been valid, say, 2015 or so, with the Silk Road and things like that. Originally, in its early growth stage, Bitcoin was used by terrorist networks and illicit networks to as a currency. So that was actually valid, but nowadays not really anymore. I mean, you have public exchanges in Coinbase, which is doing very well, by the way. You have all these different companies that allow the facilitation of these cryptocurrencies. So this is like a 2015 argument, not a today argument.
Yeah. And one of the last, it's also very important to remember, one of the last existential threats to the entire crypto ecosystem was Binance. Binance finally got slapped on the wrist with a $4 billion fine. CZ is now facing charges from the DOJ. Personally, Binance, I would say, has been stabilized, and it's been neutralized as an existential threat to the crypto ecosystem. The only other argument that's out there, or the only other skeleton that's sitting in the closet of crypto, is the stability of Tether, which has been questioned for some time now, which I'm sure if we get regulations and there's some sort of audits, that'll be brought to light. And just the vulnerability of Ethereum and the Ethereum Foundation. Yeah. Aside from those two, crypto's smooth sailing here. I mean, we've got all the kinks ironed out and ready for institutional adoption.
Forgot our boy, our producer Mitch. He's on the road today, so doesn't have the sound bed of different sound clips that he could play. But Mitch, appreciate the effort. It almost sounded pretty close. Alex Stetson writes, that white TDR hoodie is dank. Does it come in a large? It does, Alex. But please understand, from last week's podcast, Rob Seacrest and Anthony Cogniglio are the last two guys that would talk about their own book. These guys are here to educate you on the industry, and it's the only reason why we have these guys on, is to provide information for you guys. Last thing we want is people talking about their books, because that doesn't get anywhere as far as growth in the industry and people learning. So I wanted to make that very clear. This is Into the Wire, TDR Trade to Black podcast here on the Benzinga Television Network. I'm your host, Shad Dales, Benjamin A. Smith, and Anthony Verrill. Let's now switch to cannabis Momentum continues to build in this sector as well. The latest 6 governors are now pushing President Joe Biden to ensure cannabis is rescheduled by the end of the year. Ben, any chance it could happen in that time frame?
I think there's no chance it can happen in that time frame, but it's good to see the
Zilch.
governors come out and support this, because any other, even though I don't think it's an actionable thing, it's noteworthy because any pressure from the state level is a good thing, especially when it's the governorship, which is one of the highest state positions in the state. Now, interestingly enough, one of the states that that backed this letter was Louisiana, which is not a legal state. So even them to come out and support this is a good thing. And they did this for all the reasons that we know of. 88% of Americans support cannabis legalization, so they say why not? The economic benefit, the tax benefits, $1.8 billion annually in the states that are legal. And they mentioned the 280E tax code as well, and repealing that, and how it would help cannabis operators in the state. So that's a good thing. So it's for all the reasons that we know. And I guess the big takeaway here is, of course, any pressure that piles on along with what we already see in Congress is a good thing.
So you think this just, when you look at the headlines, these 6 governors are just trying to get some voter attention with something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is great, but I think the fact that every governor that has an adult use market in their state did not sign on to this is a complete disservice to the industry, as well as all of their constituents in their states.
Why wouldn't they?
This headline was great, and then when I read into it and actually thought about it, 6 is laughable. Like, if you have an adult use market in your state, you should be signed on to this.
Why would they not sign that?
I don't know. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense. And I mean, granted, the conversation's happening. I don't want to poo-poo or really throw dirt on it, but 6 to me is it's a really bush league effort.
Yeah, when you look at it from,
it should be more coordinated. They should have had, all 23 plus the District of DC sign on to that, and all the the medical states for that matter, right?
Yeah, yes. That great point, Ben. Let me rephrase that. If you have a cannabis program in your state, whether it's medical or recreational, you should be attached to this, and you should be lobbying for the effort of the greater cannabis industry.
So we've got
there's no excuse.
You guys saw some decent volume here today, but what'd you think of the news out of New York? Big step in the right direction, is it not?
I thought it was great. This industry needs these wins. And when you think about Ohio, what could have been for this week, you tack on Ohio, and now we're starting to get things going in New York. Unmitigated positive.
Yeah, that's for sure. What's this, as we talked about a few companies, you guys saw some steady volume here today, but in a nutshell, if you talk about your business and what this presents for you, how do you look at things? Is it, you look at this strategy wise a little bit differently after today's announcement?
We've always taken a cautious approach to New York. We don't own any properties in New York because of the difficult regulatory environment and how it was all unfolding. But what's really interesting for us is we look at this, and this is great for our business, even though we don't have a property there. 5 of the 6 operators approved today are in our portfolio as tenants. So this added business only enhances their top line growth and their bottom line profitability, in my opinion, over the long term. Couple that with what happened in Ohio. And so we look at these, we get excited because this is good for our tenants overall and good for their credit quality and good for their growth. And once this industry gets going, it's not industry, but once the state really gets its legs under them, we get a lot of dispensaries open, there'll be opportunities in the future for expansion.
Well, Anthony highlighted one company that stems to benefit, the Cannabis, and I know that you work with them. What a location that is in Brooklyn that they have, and what that opportunity will present, because it's a high traffic area, right?
Yeah, and you guys did a great job broadcasting from there about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I thought that was a great show, but really highlighted the quality of that location, but the quality of the facility itself. I think it's inviting, it's warm, and I think given its location right near the arena, now that you have adult use, I think they're going to have a lot of traffic out of that location.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, Anthony, we like to be realists when we look at these things. I mean, when do you really think you start to see these New York numbers reflect in these earnings reports. I mean, I'm thinking like second half of next year to first half of 2025, pretty much.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. And when you think about the opportunity on the retail side is somewhat limited in the near term, given it's just one, and then it takes a while to get the other, the unlock on the other dispensaries. And so their retail revenue is going to grow, but it's one dispensary for the near term. And then they'll open up second half of the year, another one or two. On the wholesale side, yes, it's a really good opportunity wholesale. But what are there, 25? I've seen reports of 25 to 31 dispensaries open today. And so the 6 ROs are going to be looking to sell into those dispensaries. It's not a lot of dispensaries. The real turn on for the wholesale business is when those other 436 curad licenses get approved and can get open, and then others can get open. So the state needs, given its large population, the state needs a lot of dispensaries. And so as those dispensaries get turned on, you're going to see that top line and bottom line growth for these providers. It's really going to be tied to when do those licenses come online and get open.
Have you looked at the market and anticipating to when this market actually hits its stride, like from just an opening and from a revenue perspective? I'm assuming it's probably 2025, hopefully.
We think it's going to be a massive market for sure. We do think it's going to take a while to eradicate the illicit market in the state. I think that's you see that across all states, but unfortunately, it's gotten very well entrenched. But I can't tell you whether it's going to be bigger than California or it's going to be ramp up faster than Illinois. Again, it comes back to the dispensaries. If the state can get its act together and issue those dispensaries, and then we find those dispensary license owners having access to capital to be able to get open, then we're going to see a faster ramp for this industry. We have great promise. We think it's going to be a massive market. Definitely the largest on the East Coast, in our opinion, has the opportunity for.
Keep it simple, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I don't know which Anthony, but of course.
So I was like,
right? With us on together.
There's two Anthony's on the podcast, but it's just like this stuff does not have to be as complicated as it is, but definitely a step in the right direction for the state. And you're seeing a lot of positive sentiment and a lot of stuff as far as speculation going into next year, right? All this momentum that's continued to build forward.
Yeah, and I think people are getting very excited when they hear Ohio, they hear New York. I just want people to think through what are the revenue and earnings implications of these. So the expectations for Q1 earnings, Q2 earnings, Q3 earnings, full year 24 earnings really match that opportunity set as we've been talking about. Like Anthony just said, he's thinking late 24 where things really start to hit. So he's forming in his head what his expectations are. So, hopefully the operators will come out and they'll give some good guidance in the first quarter to really set the tone for the year. So we don't get some misplaced guidance and watch stocks get ahead of themselves while we wait for this Schedule 3 activity.
Yeah, because someone earlier on Twitter brought up the question, like, so do you think that this New York news is going to impact these businesses like when Maryland came online? And I was like, no. I was like, this is not going to be a switch flips and you see incremental tens of millions of dollars in revenue hitting the top line on a quarter-over-quarter basis immediately. I was like, this is going to need to digest. They're going to need to figure this out, and it's going to be several quarters from now until this actually hits, notably on the earnings reports.
What are a couple of things that you would say that you need to watch closely for when there's more information that's shared? Anthony C.
I go to the dispensary counts. I look at the licenses that are issued in the state, who's opening up those dispensaries, and how are the existing dispensaries ramping? Because the operators that are in the state, the cannabis of the world, the acreages of the world, they all have wholesale businesses in other states, so they know how to do wholesale. They just need the capacity to sell into, and they need well-placed dispensaries that are providing good products and services to their customers so they can drive real demand at the retail location. That would be the number one thing I'd look for.
Do you foresee getting into this market, Anthony C? Or are you serving a wait and see approach right now, see how the market transforms, and then jump in if and when the time is right?
Yeah, we'll look for the right opportunity to get involved in New York. I do have to say, I'm a little worried, right? Because New York, what New York giveth, New York could taketh away. And so I think we do, while we're excited and we think it's great, I think we do want to watch and make sure that there's continued stability in the regulatory environment in New York, and there's not going to be some knee-jerk decision in the first quarter to roll back what they've done. We want to make sure that there's real stickiness to these regulatory decisions, and I think the way you get that is you get that consumer demand, you get those consumer purchasing habits, and you get a really stable market with a lot of available supply and alternatives, with everybody doing what they're supposed to do in the state, which is having over 50% of their product be non-RO capacity. I think if everybody does what they're supposed to do, this market will perform well. But I want to see the regulators perform a little consistently before we dive in.
Yeah.
Did you see that 250-page redacted document that hit the internet last night? I saw everybody. Yeah, I mean, I saw people like, oh, I'm inputting it to ChatGPT to see if we can get it unredacted. Like, I'm just going to keep combing through it. It's like, guys, it's coming. You can't speculate anymore. There is zero substance to this document.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. I think it's actually indicative of the lack of news flow in this sector.
You think?
Right? It's like, people don't have anything else to write about. Yeah. We're beyond earnings. Everyone's just waiting for this catalyst. You got Ohio. Well, New York was something to write about today, but I think people are trading this sector and they're looking for more catalysts to try to trade. And so, I applaud you for telling everybody to be patient. I just hope they listen.
Yeah, I doubt it, judging by the tape today.
Ben, I'm sure you can relate to that when we ask you to write stories.
Well, I mean, I can't lie. It's very tough to find very actionable and engaging storylines right now. Obviously, everybody's just waiting. It's sort of a combination between lack of news flow and then people anticipating that this catalyst and what it'll do to their portfolios. So you kind of got the mix, and now people are just talking about something that isn't there. I mean, like 236 pages of that report was redacted, and there's only like 14 or 15 standing pages that you could actually see. Which brings up like the other point that I always find it very amusing that the government's treating cannabis and like the research that's going into it almost like classified information, almost like the X-Files. And
I theater.
Get a good kick out of that.
Yeah.
If I may, I want to weigh in. I mean, I put it into the context of not something necessarily nefarious, but if you think about it from a government perspective, the government needs to make sure that they are consistently protecting information flow amongst the agencies. Yeah. And this just happens to be cannabis, this topic.
Yeah.
But if it was telecommunications or chip manufacturing or something else, I think we'd see a similar approach. And quite frankly, I'd even go back to the Cole Memo and the rescinding of the Cole Memo. Everybody thought it was going to be a witch hunt against cannabis. But I think really you go back and just read what the AG said at the time. Sessions said, we just can't have special memos that tell us what laws we're going to enforce and what laws we're not. And so, I don't know. I think sometimes we overthink what is, pretty regular way business for government.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. We appreciate all your feedback. So if you want to leave some comments, let us know what you think and what you want to learn of. Subscribe to our channel by clicking here. If you want to see more videos like this, then click here, because at the end of the day, we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.